Okay, so I was talking about looking up, the invention of electricity. And really, history as we know it, as far as like any human species is concerned, which we know of is just one human species, our own. It's so interesting, we are very, centered on ourselves and very centered a group. I wouldn't call it selfish or self-centered in a derogatory sense. I would call it a very good confidence within us as a species, as a race, as a society, as a group of things we deem close enough to one another in any sense you can think of, as far as stature, intelligence, capacity to both show and receive love, give and receive love, and some sort of noted both documentationally, officially, stuff like that, and also individually we can see some sort of advancement that goes on. We advance as beings maturely, and in other forms like technology. Maturely, I just mean a maturity as far as like the individual themselves and how they carry themselves, the method in which they use, and how they navigate in order to make it through life, make it through any sort of problem. As far as like its efficiency and I suppose least amount of corrosion it causes too, because like anybody can have a method faster than that, but the least amount of corrosion, the least amount of negative results because of it, even if it takes a little bit more time, we can cause a little less damage, over time with this method that we have, then of course we would choose that one. But yeah, like some sort of notable, way of advancement that we advance as beings, we advance as a race, we advance together and individually seems to be something that everybody notices, whether they've talked about it or been made aware of yet themselves. I think everybody tends to like sort of notice and appreciate this in their lives at a certain point. Anyways, what I was looking for, this electricity, when it was invented, the people behind it, all this stuff, and it's like I looked over, a few things that I could find on Google, which is the same as like any encyclopedia, which is the same as anybody's hearsay or know-how, or, this bird told me this and that bird told me that. This is what I think might be the answer. I mean, whatever the methods are, then and now, it's like I was looking at some of these names saying, wow, I don't hear of these names that often. Even a guy with the last name Volta, which sounds so suiting now that we have words for electricity like voltage and shit. Which is like probably where the fuck it came from to begin with, to be honest. I'm not sure. I didn't look any further than that. But it was a cool name. And I was like, you don't see Thomas Edison pop right up. You don't see Alexander Graham Bell pop up right away. You see people like Benjamin Franklin. But like even before Benjamin Franklin, you see some other guys. I don't remember the names. But there was like at least 5 or 6 people listed first and foremost before he was ever even talked about. And I'm not sure if that's in relation to time, because then they mentioned in another, site second after those guys, Benjamin Franklin. And what I noticed when I was reading through his little, some kind of personal notation of this guy, some kind of documentation on this guy. It's really hard when you go so far back as to say what's official, what's real, what's made law, what's made famous, popular, renowned, trusted, entrusted, society deemed, noteworthy cad. Cad is its first meaning. Not its derogatory sense, at least I think that's how far back it goes. But, this guy I was reading, Benjamin Franklin, he's a guy everybody knows about, right? Even as a kid, you knew this guy. He had a kite out one stormy evening, kind of late, kind of super dark. He had like a piece of metal or key or something like that. I think a key is what is noted as far as like what is written in frozen text about this guy. He had a key at the end of a kite. There was a storm going on. Electricity was involved in this storm. Something everybody was kind of probably used to, I guess, by then, but I'm not sure. Maybe the weather wasn't so frequent with electricity, because I know it's not really now, and I live in Connecticut. Storms and rains all the time, and as far as like flashes of, sliced photons in the air, so-called lightning, that doesn't really happen as often as you think, and to actually be able to see it at the same time it's going on, plus to be able to pay attention, or your patience to take note of it and saying, hey, what is this? A lot of things go on for such an amount of time where it's like your own natural human patience seriously doesn't even see it or notice it, or even you don't even have the ability to see a difference yet in whatever it is that's going on. Like a storm, thunder, lightning, you just sort of like chalk it up. Maybe at first it was like survival instinct to be like, oh my god, what the fuck is that? But even then it might just be an oh my god, what the fuck is that motion, instead of oh, this is thunder and now there is lightning. Like, to actually pull the pieces apart like that with your own brain and conceptual understanding to like divulge into this thing called a storm now is like, dude, how do you explain human patience? Like, I don't fucking know. The fact that, something could be sitting in the corner of the room, you don't see it for like 6 months later, saying, oh shit, what's this box here for? And it's like some box you moved back 6 months ago when you first got to that apartment and just fucking forgot about it and didn't even see it there for 6 months until 6 months, right, later, saying, Jesus Christ, man, how the fuck and what the fuck? And it's like, I don't know, how do you explain that? Some kind of patience in a human that just says, I don't get it. And then you suddenly do get it about the box in the corner of the room, and you knew it somehow the whole time because you fucking put it there. And all things say, of course, you have all the data, all the vision, all the intuition, all the senses, everything went into this from start to like where you're at when you remembered 6 months later to this box being there, and the length of time, it's hard to explain. What I'm saying, okay, is like what I read was Benjamin Franklin was reputed to have flown a kite during a storm in the 1700s, it said, and discovered electricity because of, I guess, I know I didn't read too much further than that, just enough to sort of gather it and react a bit. I need to record my thoughts. It was reputed, like, okay. It was reputed, like, I didn't look up the word meaning reputed, but from what I gathered, it's sort of something that went on that became such a hullabaloo back then that it just sort of stuck somehow. This is sort of like what I feel reputed means, but I could probably look it up and, give you a better definition and a better explanation now, afterwards of what I'm trying to say. Just in case I'm like completely off from what reputed means. But it's not like it was, written in a way that said this is what happened. Without a doubt, there were witnesses and blah, 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 blah. It was reputed. So from what I understand, in the most nice, kind, good-natured, good-minded way of thinking of the human race, as far as also correctness and professionalism and emotional balanced maturity in their life as a whole whatever that means, you know what I mean? I would say that the best I can take from that description of this guy and his experience, that he said that shit like he called up his friend. I mean, I don't know if there was a phone back then, but he went straight to his friend's house, the neighbor's house, like, oh my God, like fucking talked about this shit, freaked out, had to tell everybody right away what went on. However, he could explain and describe this thing he experienced called electricity. You know, at that time, I don't even think there was a word for it. So he like kind of just explained himself in this moment he had. And it caught on and it kept traveling, and it was such a story and an account of such grandeur, according to any other person other than himself, just wide-eyed and wowed by it. And it must have just, you know, traveled lengths and lengths, and like some sort of happening that this guy caused with his experience and his emotional backing that told this story to even the first person, the second person, every person he met. He must have been blown away each and every time, as if it had just happened, enough to like really explain this as like a holy shit, man. Are you listening or what? Because this is the bee's knees right now. And it became this reputed thing about this guy. And he became famous and historically known. I don't know if he's a valid credential, but I suppose it is in a sense, because it is an account so far back that we do have about this thing that we think, that we claim, that had been chalked up somehow to be electricity and related to electricity, and its findings, its historical beginnings, anything, right? And maybe nobody knew shit. I mean, what the fuck was he doing with a key at the end of a kite? Is like, dude, I don't know. Kids do lots of weird shit too. They say, well, if this can fly, I wonder if it could carry something. Like, I don't know. Well, who knows how smart that moment really was, and nobody took notice of that shit. The fact that he was flying a mini airplane with like a small cargo load attached to it, some key attached to a fucking kite, but nobody noticed that back then. He noticed the electricity in that motherfucker. I'm not sure if he made a connection to the key or not. You know, he fucking said, whoa, dude, that shit was crazy wild. I gotta tell somebody, is what I'm thinking. But, like, how it could have really gone down, dude, is like, man, anything could have happened. Anything. You know, just like the game of telephone, shit gets warped and translated wrong, changed, emotions get involved, and the story goes from one person to the next. Maybe there was a dispute and some guy said this instead of this because he was so upset and didn't realize it. Like, if he's a good-natured man. You know, this shit really does happen naturally like this. And gets turned into something it truly was not at all to begin with. You know, maybe it was the simplicity of, like, the sole on his shoes broke. You know, I don't know. You know, it's true, man. These things do happen. And we've seen that with, like, simple games. But is that really how it goes in history according to the situation? You know, I don't know. I really don't have any way to prove these things. But that's the best I got. But I had to share this, you know, because this is something about history. This is something about accountability, about the realistic sensibility. In history, our advancing as a being, as a community, as a race, as a species, as anything. You know, as far as I can understand, my own generation and what I've put together, and like my own account of moments in my life, and then the later moments in life of that same moment, my account of my own anythings from other people, from, you know, something I said and then they said it back to me, and whatever my account was that I said it back and they said it back to me, I was like, okay, so something went awry here, I don't really get it. I did say that, I didn't say that, I said it just like that, you sure it wasn't just like, there are too many moments I've had in life, in just my life alone. And I'm relatively young, I'd say, on the scale of age. You know, and how we see old and young. And I'd say, you know, there's a lot of room here that says, take it all with a grain of goddamn salt. Chalk it up as best you can with as best you can understand it. as far as your own knowledge goes, as well as whatever has been deemed real knowledge, because it's true, man. I myself, what I take in, I'm quite the observer. I've always been a big observer. Most of the beginning of my whole half of my life was just observing others. And it seems that we do this, and it's not a problem. It's just the way we do things. And it's like we're constantly looking for the best account of something, the best account of whatever, how we feel about it at the time, and then later, and then what we feel really happened. It's like hard to say as a being of emotion, and to also understand that these emotions are truly a part of the experience as well. Like the fact that you are a being and not a camera or some video camera, some piece of technology looking at it without the eyes of a being, the feelings of a being, the true sense that a being has, separate from some sort of hardware put together, some sort of material put together, not in being format like ourselves, the human race. We are definitely an account of some moment that went on that is absolutely perfect, whether we have words for it or not, or the visionary sensibility to capture that moment as far as it really looked in that exact moment it happened. Like, we're talking exact pinpoint moment. It's very hard to understand this as being a real thing that we have ever shared. The exact moment, the exact account of. Anything. And that we've ever experienced in life personally or as a group, you know what I mean? No matter how close the account is, no matter how accurate it seems according to everybody involved in videos and cameras and all that shit, it's like, seriously, to actually give a strict account of the exact, and I'm talking exact, man, I'm not trying to say less or more, give or take 5 points. No, dude, exact, like the accounted moment. The moment as it stands, as it did stand, with whoever stood there to say that this was a moment, to somehow recall that it was a moment, or is a moment, however you'd like to say it. It's serious business, and, just take it with a grain of salt, because it's true, man. I'm not saying don't throw away, our centuries and lifelong, move from a lesser to more sort of outlook in our advancement as a being, and our trying to account for history and account properly and document properly and get the right information. And I'm not saying throw all that shit to waste, man. Of course there's much to be said for that. If that's really all we've got, then it's like a base, right, to go off of, to at least understand that there is progress and where it's being made to some degree. Like, it's something rather than nothing, okay. But what I'm saying is, as a being, as an individual self, if you're having a hard time, you're finding too many inconsistencies, you don't know how to answer it, you're freaking out, you don't understand, it doesn't sound right, so you're finding it false, or you become some sort of like anarchist. It's like, just honestly, man, take it, or lady, take it, or whoever, take it with a grain of salt, because it's absolutely true, and absolutely, not uncommon for any one person, such as yourself, to come to these sorts of conclusions and feelings about, and take that sort of route because of. But, like, you're not the only one. I mean, this is probably something that's been noted and philosophically talked about over time, possibly, and it's probably documented in some sort of textbook somewhere, to be honest with you. It's just some sort of side note, of the human psyche and the understanding of it, is that, we're doing the best we can, is probably how most would describe everything so far, is we're doing the best we can based on what we know to be the best way that we can do it, until, the best way we know we can do it, like, obviously, is what I would say, obviously, right? Knowing myself and the good-natured being we are, and a natural drive to advance, of course, become a better us, or become a better any sort of society, better quality of life and such. You know, like, of course, that's what we're doing. We're trying to find the best this and that and make it better. We're trying to find the best and make that better. Like, we're trying to supersede all of that which is and just, like, blow everybody's mind with, like, how nonsensically awesome it really, truly is somehow. We can figure out. As intelligent beings, we can somehow figure out that even more than 100% is somehow what we're going to get to, and that'll be great. And somehow, you know, experience is better. So, that's all I got. 21 minutes here of a speech, a rant of mine about history and, you know, my thoughts on it. A brief philosophy, I guess, you know. So thanks for listening. Alright, bye. Okay, so I was talking about looking up, you know, the invention of electricity. And really, history as we know it, as far as like any human species is concerned, which we know of is just one human species, our own. It's so interesting, you know, we are very, you know, centered on ourselves and very centered